All right, guys, I have a super simple Canva tutorial for you this week. It's not a hack. I wouldn't call it a hack because you do have to use one of the apps that can be brought into Canva. If you don't know about Canva apps yet, well, then maybe this is like going to open your eyes to something even bigger than just this. But one of the things that I have needed on a regular basis, both for myself, but also for my husband, as he's an author and does a lot of like in-person events and things like that, is a custom QR code. But did you know, A, that you can create a QR code in Canva, but also if you're using the right Canva app, you can actually like customize how it looks and brand it to your specific brand. So that's what I'm going to show you guys this week. But before we dive into this, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a tutorial or upload. All right, guys, let's get to it. Okay, guys, so this one is super simple, but if you've never used apps before in Canva, then you might not even know where exactly to find them. So I've created here just a quick logo design just because it's a good size for a QR code. But then we're going to come over here to apps. And then in here, we're just going to search QR. Okay, you're going to see there's a lot of different choices here. Now, I've used a couple of the different ones, and I don't necessarily have a preference. I think they all do a really good job. But it is important to note that not all of them create a dynamic QR code. And what that means is that once you've created the QR code and linked it to something, you cannot change what that is linking to. So if you need a dynamic QR code, like you might in the future want to change what you're pointing to in that QR code, then you're going to want to make sure that you're choosing one of these that says dynamic. So I'm going to go ahead with this one just because I've used it before and I know that it allows for that customization, that branding that we were talking about, but it is not dynamic. So let me just make that clear. If you think that you might need to change the link in the future, I would try maybe this one instead. But let's go ahead with this one. And then the first thing you do is just tell it where you want that QR code to point. Then we're going to come here to customize, and here's where you get to kind of choose your colors. So I tend to keep the background still white, but at the same time, if you know that you're going to be pasting this QR code on top of something that is a branded color, it might make sense to go ahead and use that color as the background because then your QR code will have essentially a transparent background, right? But then we're going to come here to the foreground color, and here's where you do need to have your hex code ready to go. I do not because I was not thinking about that in the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it real quick right here in my brand kit. I'm going to come into where the colors are and just grab the hex code for the one that I want. So that is one thing about this, because this is an app, this is not necessarily tied into your Canva account in the same way that it would be when you're changing colors in other designs. So in other places, you're able to just kind of select your brand codes, right? But in this case, you have to actually go and grab it and be ready for that, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we've chosen our main color, and I'm going to go ahead and generate that code. That is one super simple way to just bring your brand colors into the mix and allow for brand recognition, or I guess just to keep it tied into your brand design when you're doing a QR code. But let's look at one more option here where you can actually add a logo into your QR code. It's really cool. Let's check it out. Now let's remember too that sometimes these apps will come with limitations, right? They might have subscriptions or things like that that you have to pay for after you've made like your first couple of QR codes or things like that. I don't believe that either one of these do, but just keep that in mind. And this is also not a dynamic QR code, which means that you can't change the link later. You can see that right here. It does warn you about that. It's free. It does not expire. That is also important, but it is not going to be dynamic. And this one's really cool too, because this one actually does tie into your branding. So when you come to the foreground color, you're going to click here and you're going to see your brand colors and stuff. So that actually does make this one just a little bit easier to use. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. As you can see here, this one is actually not going to pull from your logos in your branding. It'd be cool if it was like all or nothing, right? But that's not always the case. So we're going to go ahead and add that logo, and you can see how it's going to show up right there. Super cool. And now let's go ahead and add this to the design. So for me personally, this is my preference because how cool is that? That you're totally bringing in your actual branding into the QR code You can use this anywhere. It's free. It's not going to expire. But again, remember that it is not dynamics. So the next time you need a QR code for your business, whether it's for like the end of a YouTube video or for a flyer for an in-person event, something like that, I hope you'll remember that Canva is a super simple way to do that, and you can maintain your brand recognition. The online tools for your business do not need to be complicated and overwhelming. It's time to let it be easy. I hope you liked that video, and more importantly, that you found it helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing it with a fellow solopreneur. And make sure you check out the description for links to how we can connect and maybe even work together.